Stone Cold Sports Talk, episode 32. Can't believe it's already 32. We've done it the last 2 weeks. We're going to do it again. Let's just hop right in to hot takes. Jay, lead us off.
So I know the big thing coming out of last night was how impressive Alabama looked, how Nick Saban won his 7th title, past Bear Bryant, all that, blah, blah, blah. And that's phenomenal. But the bigger story to me, and I'm an NFL draft guy, so I'm kind of biased when I say this. We came into this season looking at Ohio State's Shaun Wade. He played nickel last year, was phenomenal inside on the defense at corner. And they threw him outside because Okudah and Damon Arnett were both first-round draft picks last year. And he's like, it's reasonable to move somebody inside to out when you lose the people outside. And we thought he'd be like a first-round talent outside. He'd be not quite Okudah, maybe an Arnett, maybe a mid to late first-round pick. But somebody needs to get in this guy's ear and tell him to prep for a 9-to-5 job and worry about his college degree instead of actually worrying about his professional football career, because he flat out stinks. And it has been proven week after week after week. And I'm sick of the Shaun Wade is good talk. Ty Freifogel took him to the woodshed. Cornell Powell did it last week. And then obviously Devontae Smith did it last night. So I'm sick of the Shaun Wade is good crap. And if he gets taken first 3 rounds, like the team, you might as well just not even like have a draft pick in the first 3 rounds, because he cannot cover like a.
Well, I don't know. John Gruden does really seem to be irrationally high on all Ohio State defensive backs. So you know how Arnett was the surprise first-round pick? Wouldn't be shocked to see the Raiders at number 17 rolling in, grabbing Shaun Wade. Or fastest available receiver. That's the Gruden first-round draft policy. Fastest available wide receiver or most overrated defensive back.
Yes.
Taft?
So,
would you like? Oh wait, you have anything else, Jay?
I got 2 more quick ones. As talented as Alabama was, the whole reason that they were so good was because of Steve Sarkisian. And you can see that because Mac Jones, if he threw the ball more than 10 yards down the field, 1, it was rare. 2, I wasn't super impressed. And when he did throw more than 10 yards down the field, it was so wide open because they schemed Devontae Smith on a middle linebacker. Like, it's just not fair. So I think Steve Sarkisian probably did even a better job than Joe Brady did last year at LSU, because they don't have Chase, Marshall, and Jefferson. They just had Smith. They had an injured Waddle. Mechie was an unknown name. And Mac, people love Mac Jones, but let's be real, he's not Joe Burrow. And
have you seen the picture of Mac Jones smoking the cigar after the game?
Yes.
Though, I mean, he looks like he is a specimen.
Yes,
I mean, it's like Jamarcus Russell is the king of out of shape quarterbacks, but then slightly behind him, I would say, is Mac Jones.
So I think Steve Sarkisian was the reason this Alabama team was so good, and it's going to be really interesting to see how they replace him. Well, they're going to have to replace a lot of people. They always do, but especially the offensive coordinator spot, see what kind of philosophy they go forward with. And I mentioned this during the national championship last night. I still think Clemson was a better team than Ohio State. It's just that Ohio State was a better team that night when they played. And obviously it's single elimination, so you have one bad night, you're out. I think if you were to play those teams 10 times, Clemson wins probably 7 or 8 times. Like the whole reason Ohio State was so good is because they were so motivated to get a rematch and blah, blah, blah from last year. But heartbreaking loss to Clemson in the Fiesta Bowl. You get that out of the way because they already played the game. They play again. Clemson, I think, wins by a lot. So I think the committee did it right. They gave the teams the opportunity to play each other. Ohio State was better on that night and moved on, but I still think Clemson was a better team than Ohio State.
Taft, your scalding hot take.
After Alabama's steamrolling in the national championship last night, I think Nick Saban can officially be labeled the GOAT for college football coaches. He now has the most national championships out of any coach with 7, and that's passing Bear Bryant, who had 6 at Alabama. They both have 6 at Alabama, which is unreal. The program now has 18 natties. But Nick Saban, I think it's fair to say that he is the greatest college football coach of all time just because of the dynasty that Alabama has had. I mean, it was unreal. People were arguing last night if that was the best Alabama team, and it's a hard argument to make just because of how many good Alabama rosters Nick Saban has created. And it seems like every year you can just expect them to be in the national championship. And unfortunately for me as a Dogs fan, you kind of have to expect it every year now.
I would say Clay Helton also in the conversation for greatest college football coach of all time, but I guess Nick Saban, you can make the argument.
Well, Clay Helton has how many national championships?
Hey,
How
how
many
many
Pac-12
times? Hey,
championships
how
does he
many
have?
how many NFL quarterback busts does he have? I think he might beat Saban there, and that's hard to
Stone-
do.
Don't throw it back 2 months. Sam Pittman, you were going to put in that conversation. Let's be real.
For
You and
what?
Tap were
I was
all over
not.
Sam Pittman being in that conversation.
He unlocked Felipe in a way Dan Mullen couldn't do, and he's an offensive line coach. I think that's pretty impressive. William, speaking of offensive line coaches from the University of Georgia, your hot take.
This is not nearly as scalding as the Matt Corral Heisman take, which unfortunately Jay didn't get to see in person. This goes out to Taft, and I'm going Georgia to win the national championship in 2021. This isn't charity. I actually think Georgia has one of the best returning rosters in the SEC and probably the whole country. We saw that Kirby finally unlocked, it was about time. He had to unlock JT Daniels at some point during the season. And Stetson had a good run, a good Cinderella run there where he got a couple wins, but we saw some serious cracks during that Alabama game. And I think this offense is just going to reload with Pickens, James Cook, and Zamir White all coming back. And I've heard that Arik Gilbert from LSU, the 5-star tight end, he's homesick. He's from Georgia. He might go to Georgia or Florida. And they also already have a freshman 5-star tight end, Darnell Washington. So if Gilbert's somehow committed, that'd be an insane duo. And then the recruiting class, Kirby knows how to recruit. Number 3 recruiting class in the country. The defense is going to reload with 2 5-star outside linebackers. And I think that they're going to have a defense that is, as good as this past season, even with Richard LeCount gone and a couple other guys leaving for the NFL. But I think it's the Dogs' year. We talked about this. Are they like Texas? Or are they just pretenders? And I don't think so. I think they've been to the playoff. They've been in the national championship game. They were that close. And this year, I think they take that leap. I think that now they know there's no quarterback controversy and Daniels is their guy. And I think that Georgia's going to win the ship. Shout out Taft.
It's only our second pod of 2021, but that's already my favorite hot take of the year.
I read that and immediately thought that was Taft's hot take. I did not think William said that at all.
I don't have the courage to say that because I don't want to jinx anything, but I think that Georgia is going to have a lot of success next year if they can stay healthy. I mean, so many guys returning on offense, which has really been what's been holding the Dogs back in the past few years. They've just needed a quarterback. It seems like they have that in JT Daniels if he can perform like he did ever since coming in the Mississippi State game. So if JT Daniels and the offense can live up to their expectations, I think Georgia is a good shot to win the Natty, like William said.
If we're going to try to use these hot takes to get on each other's good sides, here's mine. The University of Virginia is going 14-0 in football next year and making the college football playoff. If only. All right. My actual hot take, though. We're going to go NFL here. I feel like college football has kind of been exhausted for hot takes today. I'm going to say the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are my new favorite to win the NFC. Now, we haven't seen the Packers play in the playoffs yet. Again, it's hot takes. I got to be bold here. I can't just say the number 1 seed's going to win out and win the NFC. The reason I think Tampa Bay is the new favorite is the dynamic kind of shifted between last weekend and this one. The Bucs didn't look great against the Washington football team, but the spin on that is that Taylor Heineke played the game of his life basically against Tampa, and Tampa was still a half point away from covering the spread. When the spread was at 8.5 and 9, they weren't expecting Taylor Heineke to throw for, I don't know what it was. There's north of 200, maybe 300. Someone else can fact check me on that. I'm not entirely certain, but he had them in that game and Tampa still looked good, still looked in control. And it was close in the fourth quarter. And the issue with Tampa all year is, without good play calling from Byron Leftwich and Bruce Arians, there were times that they really weren't trying to put games away on the ground, but did a nice job of working clock in the fourth quarter, getting getting Fournette some touches and whatnot. And I think that Tampa looked really good last weekend, and the 8-point win in Washington, although not as big as expected, I still think was a step in the right direction, especially given the fact that Tom Brady didn't throw a pick. As impressive as he's been at age 43, the problem is, and it was in the playoffs last year against Tennessee too, he makes one or two mental mistakes a game, often sometimes in the red zone, where he throws a really bad interception that costs his team a chance to keep putting up points. But I mean, what offense in the NFC do you like more? Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams are great, yes, but Tom Brady at his disposal has Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, two top-tier NFL wide receivers, Rob Gronkowski at tight end, and then a revolving door at running back with Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette, but both guys that, power backs go up the middle and really get you 4 or 5 yards of play. And if they can figure out the play calling and figure out how to use Tom effectively, I really like them. Not to mention that defense, if that pass rush gets after Aaron Rodgers, if that's what the matchup ends up being, I think that Tampa, Green Bay, and Lambeau, obviously, the Bucs are a warm weather team, but their quarterback played in Boston, Massachusetts, or Foxborough rather, for 20 years. So I think that the quarterback's probably the position you're most concerned about in the cold, especially when he's 43 years old, and Tom Brady proved over time he can take it. Now, of course, there's the issue of, can they beat the New Orleans Saints this weekend? The Saints won 21-9 the final, because there was that close cover, Jimmy Graham, the one-handed catch that almost got Chicago to cover the 11-point spread, but we all figured out that you don't have to kick extra points unless it directly impacts the outcome. But New Orleans should have won that game by a lot more. Drew Brees, not overly impressive, and obviously the Bears defense is really good, but to only win by 12 and not even hit the 30s with that offense is kind of concerning. And Michael Thomas even had a touchdown, and they still couldn't hit 30 points.
Well, Stone, you got to remember, the whole reason that Chicago was able to move down the field to get to 9 was because Drew Brees was about 2 inches short of the goal line on 4th and goal on a sneak. So it very easily could have been 28-9 or 10 or 3.
I'm just saying New Orleans had every reason to blow out the Chicago Bears because the Bears stink. And they didn't really do that. Not in the other thing that, and I'm basically putting all of my stock in this, is that it's really hard to beat a division rival twice a year. The Saints drubbed the Bucs twice, and I really don't imagine it happening a third time this weekend. But that's a conversation for a later date. That being said, though, love Tampa in these playoffs. If you're a gambling man, they're probably a great value bet to win the NFC right now. And it's hard to, obviously last year being the exception, to bet against Tom Brady in January just because of how dominant he's been historically. And I mean, this is probably the most talented offense he's had at his disposal since maybe, at least with the names he's throwing to, maybe since Randy Moss was in New England. So that's my hot take. Divisional round this weekend, 4 incredible games. Ravens Bills is probably the best of the bunch. That is the Saturday nighter. William, tell us a little bit about the battle in Weston, New York.
Going to be a great one down there at Orchard Park, New York, this Saturday. Battle the young upstart QBs. I mean, Lamar Jackson, the MVP last year, Josh Allen, probably the runner-up for the MVP this year. And, Brian Dabble has given this team life on offense. Stephon Diggs with that trade has been huge for them, and Cole Beasley has stepped up, made second team All-Pro, which I found somewhat surprising, but I think he was one of the best slot receivers this year. I think that, the passing game isn't going to be huge in this one. The Ravens have a great secondary, and Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters are going to do a pretty good job against probably John Brown and Stephon Diggs, so it could be a Cole Beasley game. And then on the other side, I don't think Marquise Brown is going to be able to do much against Tre'Davious White, and I think that the key here is, are the Ravens going to be able to run the ball all over the Bills? And is it going to be one of those J.K. Dobbins, Lamar Jackson games where they're both getting 1 or 2 touchdowns each on the ground? So I think that, I don't want to bet against the Bills again because last week I did. Granted, it was a close game, and I think the Colts covered the spread.
It was 6.5. Easy cover.
Yeah, easy cover. But for my picks, I picked the Colts, and that didn't go as planned. I think the Bills look like a team of destiny right now, honestly. They're riding a 7-game win streak. Ravens are also on a 6-game win streak, but they had some cupcake wins there in the regular season. I think that if they're able to contain Lamar and JK, that passing game is going to be practically non-existent, and I think the Bills just have more weapons. Josh Allen can also get it on the ground, and they're at home with Bills Mafia. Like, come on. I'm gonna go Bills here.
While I'm looking up the spread, someone else give their pick.
I like this game a lot. I've been riding Josh Allen and the Bills high all season. I'm gonna stick with my hot take a few weeks ago that the Bills would win the Super Bowl. That's obviously a stretch, but I do think that they will surpass Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. Baltimore was really pumped up against the Titans, and they still won a close one in Nashville. I think Buffalo has a lot more momentum, and they also have a lot more motivation because really in Buffalo and Bills Mafia, they're looking at this as their year. Josh Allen, potential MVP winner, and they have done so well this season and surpassed expectations. I'm going to take Buffalo 3-point win, maybe let's say 27-24.
And that's exactly the line right now. Sits at 3. Jay, your thoughts on this tangle between Lamar and Josh Allen?
So, what I forget, I guess it was 2 weeks ago because I missed last week. I was saying that Buffalo has the best shot to beat Kansas City if they were to play each other. And I fully believe that even to right now. I think Buffalo would give Kansas City a much better game than Baltimore can. But the playoffs are all about matchups. And if the Bills have one weakness, it is their run defense. And we saw that last week. Jonathan Taylor had a good day on the ground. And I think it's just weird because Lamar was criticized so often, and I mean reasonably so, for not winning a playoff game. And he finally got the proverbial monkey off his back and won a playoff game against a team that had frankly manhandled them the past 2 times they'd played each other. And it's really tough. I love some Stephon Diggs. He's been going off. I had him on my fantasy team. That's part of the reason why, but he's just insane. And Josh Allen, I think he has a better arm than Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes just gets the game a little more mentally and can get the ball where it needs to be easier. But if you were to have an arm strength contest, I think Allen would blow Mahomes out of the water, and that's saying something. So it's tough. I got to take Baltimore just because of their, like William said, their defense. They've got 2 premier corners to match up with Stephon Diggs and John Brown. And the real problem is going to be Beasley inside, but the Bills' lack of a running game. I mean, Devin Singletary is fine, but Zach Moss is going to be out. I think he's out indefinitely with an ankle injury that he got last weekend. So I got to take Baltimore. I don't think Buffalo stops the run well enough to be able to keep this game low scoring enough for their offense to keep up with Baltimore. So give me, I think it's relatively low scoring, kind of like Taff said. Give me Baltimore 31, Buffalo 27.
I can't decide if I think this is going to be like first to 20 wins or first to 40 wins, because with all the talent on these offenses, it's certainly possible. But then, you got guys like Trey White in the secondary for Buffalo. And then, like you guys mentioned, Marcus Peters, Marlon Humphrey in the secondary for Baltimore. I think Buffalo is going to win this game. This is one of those divisional matchups where it's very tempting to try to outthink the room almost. And I feel like this is going to be a game that we head into expecting it to be expecting the unexpected, and then we get exactly what we think. I think Buffalo wins this in a close one. I think it does stay a little lower scoring because I think that the Ravens' best chance at winning is to work the clock and kind of like some teams tried to do with Kansas City earlier this year, just keep the Buffalo Bills offense off the field, because every minute that Josh Allen's not out there throwing bombs to Stephon Diggs or finding Cole Beasley over the middle is another minute that, you're basically just surviving. I'm going to say Buffalo takes this one, very low scoring. The ESPN weather thing has a little snowflake. That's what the AccuWeather broadcast is. So maybe some snow football in January. That could just be a tease, though. I'm going to say Buffalo wins this one 23-20 in a low-scoring battle out in Orchard Park. The other Saturday game is Rams versus Packers. The Rams pulled off the upset with kind of an asterisk because Russell Wilson just played terribly, but pulled off the upset in Seattle last week, won 30-20. Packers, of course, off last week. The brief recap of the wild card game is John Wolford was the starter, and kind of because Jared Goff got what all term shadow benched, where he had the thumb injury and was healthy enough to play, evidently, because he came in when Wolford got hurt. But Troy Aikman was saying that Sean McVay was not exactly high on Jared Goff coming into the week. So they went with Wolford. Wolford was in for a couple of series. Jamal Adams decided to go headhunting, even though that was basically the only thing he did for that Seattle defense the entire game. He had a torn labrum, understandable that he wouldn't really be that useful for them. But Wolford came in, got his neck hurt, ended up, I think, getting like in an ambulance and like going to a hospital. Like it was that bad. And then Jared Goff came in relief. And the biggest story of the Saturday wildcard games was Jared Goff did not throw an interception as he came in relief against the Seattle Seahawks. Huge news at whatever they renamed CenturyLink Field. So for this weekend, John Wolford is questionable. Cooper Kupp is questionable. Aaron Donald is questionable. And the Green Bay Packers are a 6.5-point favorite, 60% of bets so far coming in on the Packers. The last time these two teams met was in 2018, which I guess was the fall after. That was the season before that was the regular season before the Rams made the Super Bowl. The Rams won it 29-27. Of course, Aaron Rodgers, the presumptive MVP at this point, making his playoff debut this season. I think 6.5 is a big number. If Aaron Donald plays, I would not be stunned if the Rams somehow keep this close. But and the Jalen Ramsey, Devontae Adams story is going to be fascinating because Ramsey just locked up DK Metcalf last week and proved himself to be, I think, in the conversation, possibly. Do we think best corner in the league, Jalen Ramsey? Buy or sell that?
Yeah, I second that.
DK's stat line.
He's the best corner in the league, but he did not lock down. DK Metcalf had
he had 2 touchdowns, like 70 yards.
Yeah.
How many yards?
He didn't have many catches, but he had 2 touchdowns. He had that big touchdown. I don't know if Ramsey was on him or he was.
No, they did not travel Ramsey with Metcalf until that play. They played sides because Darius Williams, as we saw, can pick off a screen. He's a damn good corner. He picks off that screen pass from right in front of DK, takes it to the house. But
that was supposed to be the Goff play. The Russell Wilson pick six, like that's a Jared Goff throw.
Yes, DK Metcalf. This is 2 weeks ago. Hang on, let me pull up. DK went 5 for 96 and 2 touchdowns.
Okay, but what about once they had Ramsey on him? He didn't really do anything in the second half. They scored 20 points and got a garbage time touchdown.
He had 4 for 45 and a touchdown.
Okay, given that Russell was probably targeting DK Metcalf the entire second half.
I think DK had like 40% of Seattle's targets.
Yeah,
from what I remember looking at.
And he's a really good receiver. And Jalen Ramsey contended with him. The Adams-Ramsey matchup is probably the one on which this entire game hinges. Also, Aaron Donald versus the offensive line without David Bakhtiari. Obviously, Donald lines up on the inside anyway, but offensive tackle and David Bakhtiari out for the season with a torn ACL. I think this is Green Bay's second game without him. He got hurt right before week 17 with the Bears. Yeah. I'm going to say Green Bay wins, covers, but would not be stunned if the Rams keep this one close. I'm going to say Packers 24, Rams 13. Wolford, Goff, whoever leads the offense, isn't going to quite be able to do enough. But if Cam Akers and if Sean McVay is smart and feeds Cam Akers the ball against this Packers rush defense, there's definitely a chance of him popping off. But they also contained Derrick Henry a couple weeks ago. So the Packers rush defense seems to be much improved since then. Y'all's thoughts on the first divisional round game Saturday afternoon?
Packers coming off a nice break. I think they'll take advantage of that, especially since they don't have to worry about a 100% Aaron Donald. That's big. He, along with that entire defense, just dominate games. And I do think the Rams have the best defense in the league. However, I think Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers will be too much for LA, and they'll go on to win 30-24.
Everything is telling me to pick Green Bay. They're at home. They're the number 1 seed in the NFC.
Don't do it.
Are you going to fade yourself?
Don't do it.
Are you going to fade yourself, William?
But I'm going with the Los Angeles Rams.
Ooh, that should have been your hot take.
Yeah, I know.
Actually,
it's this defense. I guess I have to. I'm living up to the hot takes because they just keep getting hotter. I just like this defense too much. Made Russell Wilson look like a terrible quarterback last week. And if Jalen Ramsey is able to erase Devontae Adams, who's Rodgers going to look to? Is it going to be Alan Lazard? Is it going to be Tanyan? And I think that Aaron Donald also, I'm assuming he's going to play, even though he's questionable. Usually that designation means you're going to play in a playoff game. I mean, he is a true game changer. And with Bakhtiari out, Donald's going to still create some serious pressure up the middle. And I think that Rodgers, like the game I saw 2 years ago when Khalil Mack had 2 sacks and a fumble recovery. I mean, one of those guys can make a difference on the offensive line. I think that could be Donald. And this offense, I think, will do, just enough, whether it's Wolford or Goff. Obviously not exciting. But like Luke was saying, this could be a Cam Akers game. The Packers still have a pretty average run defense. I think they're around 24th. So if they can feed Cam Akers, they still have Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp, who's questionable, but I'm guessing will play. I think that the Rams escape with a win here thanks to their very stingy defense. Hot take.
That's the hottest take of all takes we've said today. Aaron Donald. What?
Your score prediction is literally 23-21. It's like
well,
it's not that.
I just cannot see Aaron Rodgers losing at I don't know how the game's going to go down, but there's just no way Aaron Rodgers, loses at home to John Wolford.
Wait, you mean kind of like how last year there was no way Tom Brady would ever lose a first-round playoff game to Ryan Tannehill in Foxborough? Expect the unexpected. Welcome to January.
You can expect the unexpected. Aaron Donald's got he's got a rib injury though, and if you lineman ribs, probably the midsection chest area, probably the most important area to have healthy for a game because
they're going to give him whatever they gave Justin Fields in the medical tent that got him to go for the second half. He'll be fine.
Yeah. So I got the Packers 23-21. It's close. I don't know why I'm actually picking it that's close now that I'm talking about it. But I just think the Rams defense as a whole is so good it's going to keep it close.
Speaking of games ripe for an upset. Oh, William, did you have something you want? Okay.
Closer than the experts predict.
Green Bay Packers, closer than the experts predict. Then there's the odd 10-second pause because he's in wherever in Florida and they're waiting for that to get beamed back through to wherever they are live. All right. Third game. I think this is the Sunday afternoon game, Browns Chiefs. First of all, we haven't even mentioned the Cleveland Browns yet, which I think we've set a new record for sports podcasts for length of time without talking about the Cleveland Browns getting their first playoff win since 1995. Congratulations to Baker Mayfield. Even bigger congratulations to Mike Tomlin, who I am awarding the questionable coaching decision of the week. 4th and 1 at I think their own 45, down 12. They were down 12, not 11, because he decided to kick the extra point, which is another boneheaded decision. But Mike Tomlin decided to blink, then kind of run a fake punt, then back off it, then give the ball back to the Cleveland Browns at the 20, and then within 3 plays, they were back at the Pittsburgh 45-yard line. Congratulations to Mike Tomlin for somehow outdoing Frank Reich and I think Mike Vrabel for dumbest decisions of the weekend.
It's not dumber than Vrabel had 4th and 2 inside Baltimore territory, down double digits in the fourth quarter of a playoff game, and he didn't go for it.
I know, but this happened on Sunday Night Football, so it's a little bigger. If Steve Levy's the one calling if Steve Levy's calling your game, you expect there to be some really stupid coaching decision because usually it's some 2 p.m. bowl game on 2 days after Christmas. Anyway, Browns Chiefs in Arrowhead. Chiefs coming off the bye. Jay, break this one down.
So I'm assuming we all watched, and everybody listening watched that Browns Steelers game, and the Browns looked really good, but they also got a whole lot of help from the straight luck coming from the Pittsburgh Steelers. How often does the first snap of the game you don't touch the ball before the 1 yard line and you're up 7-0 8 seconds in the game? That just doesn't happen. It happened.
Sometimes it happens in the Super Bowl.
Peyton Manning had a safety against the Seahawks in the Super Bowl with it, but that just doesn't happen. So you're up 7-0 to begin with, and then the next possession, Ben Roethlisberger throws an interception in Steelers territory. So you go up 14-0, and there's 8 minutes left in the first quarter. The Browns are good. They had too much adversity last week for me to even try to comprehend. Losing your offensive play caller and head coach and all-pro right guard or left guard and your best corner against a team that cannot run the ball and only passes the ball. You think that
And Kadarius Hodge. Just want to throw it out there. And
I picked the Steelers, and I was pretty confident in that, if we're being honest, and that just didn't go well. So the Browns are fresh off their win. Now they get the reward of course, going to play Patrick Mahomes in Arrowhead. As I mentioned before, Stefanski, Bitonio, and Denzel Ward are all coming back. Jack Conklin, the first-team All-Pro right tackle, he had a hamstring injury in the first half, did not return to the game, but walked back to the sideline. I just looked day to day with a hamstring injury. Clyde Edwards-Helaire should be back from his high ankle sprain he got against New Orleans. That's kind of crazy to think about. He should be back. Cam Akers came back in 2 weeks. This will be 4 for Clyde Edwards-Helaire, so he should be fine. And I just – even though Baker, who is the ultimate competitor, trash talker, he has all the house money he could want to play with this weekend, I just think that the luck for Cleveland runs out. They got to keep it close. They can keep it close with the run game. They just got to get some stops on defense, and I don't think they get enough stops. So I got Kansas City 34-24 over the Browns.
So right on the line of that 10-point spread. William and Taft, your thoughts?
Yeah, my prediction is very similar to Jay's. I think Kansas City is going to dominate this game from the beginning. Cleveland, really, the Pittsburgh game was their Super Bowl. They beat their rivals. They won their first playoff game since '95. Obviously, they're still going to be trying to win this game, but I don't think that I think that if they end up losing, which they will, I think they're still going to look back on the year 2020, 2021 season and call it a successful season since they won this playoff game. Chiefs win it. They're up from the start. I'm going to say 35-24.
Yeah, I'm gonna go kind of conservative in my pick. I go with the Chiefs, 37-28. Yes, the Browns. I think the Browns will cover the spread. Strictly because Stefanski, Bitonio, and Ward are out. Are back. That's gonna make the game a little bit closer. But the Chiefs and Arrowhead, team that's coming off the Super Bowl, I can't go against Patrick Mahomes in this offense here. I don't think the Browns are going to be able to keep pace even with that running game that I think the Chiefs are going to struggle with. I think Chubb and Hunt are going to have a good game, but I don't think they're going to be able to keep up with the Chiefs offense.
The spread is, I think, the only interesting storyline. Well, not interesting storyline. The only thing that once the game kicks off is going to be extremely fascinating. As much as the Browns defense, I guess you could say, forced turnovers against Big Ben, which is kind of like saying that you're forcing turnovers against Nathan Peterman. It's like if you're just kind of standing there, you're going to get at least 2 interceptions in a big moment. I think Cleveland comes out not necessarily looking flat, but I think that whatever amount of energy they have, the Chiefs are just going to multiply it by 1,000. I'm not going to be as conservative. I'm going to say Chiefs in a blowout. I don't think this offense can keep pace. I mean, the Chiefs defense has been fine. They haven't necessarily been impressive, but they're also, Frank Clark's a really good player. Chris Jones is a really good player. And I think that they'll have pretty good games up front, put pressure on Baker Mayfield, which we've seen is a very easy formula to make him uncomfortable. And the secondary is good enough to, make some plays and at least keep pace with Jarvis Landry. And if not, the defensive coordinators will make the adjustments they need to make. It seemed like Pittsburgh was entirely uninterested in figuring out how to cover Jarvis Landry. Don't anticipate that the Chiefs will have the same problem on the back end. And then, I mean, it's important to remember this Browns secondary, even with Denzel Ward, has been gashed a couple of times this year. I mean, they allowed 47 points against, I guess it was 45 technically because of the safety, but 45 points against the Baltimore Ravens. And there were a couple of times that, Lamar Jackson was looking deep against them, and that doesn't happen often. And for as much money as they spend on this front seven, which is really, really good in the secondary, Denzel Ward and then Sendejo, maybe is that the only other kind of big name guy for them, Jay, in that secondary?
Earl Joseph is a pretty good safety, and I struggle to think they're going to be somewhat successful. Their nickel corner, Kevin Johnson, lacerated his kidney in like a contact injury last week. I thought he was on he's on the COVID list too, so he's just in a world of hurt right now. But Kevin Johnson, their nickel guy, is out indefinitely. I thought he was going to be back this week because I only thought he was on COVID, but I looked and he has a lacerated kidney and internal bleeding last week. So, yikes. Yeah, it's Denzel Ward and Carl Joseph and Sendejo and MJ Stewart, actually, who went to Carolina and played nickel last week, so he'll be back again. He played decent. So,
Yeah, even if those guys are serviceable, I mean, obviously Juju, Deontay Johnson, James Washington are hard covers, but they're not nearly as hard as Tyreek Hill, Sammy Watkins, Miko Hardman, and of course, Travis Kelce. The Kelce question is probably what's going to decide this game. That's all a long way of saying Kansas City by a pretty comfortable margin. I'm going to say the Chiefs hit the 30-point mark. I would say they win 38-20 against the Browns in a game that's never really that close. I think Kansas City just totally motivated to put all of this doubt to rest and hopefully set us up for what should be a great championship Sunday in the AFC with the Bills-Chiefs matchup. I think we all think we deserve. Now, Sunday night, Tampa Bay visits New Orleans, visits the Superdome, but like not with really that many fans. So the home field advantage, not as big a factor. Taft, send us away.
Yeah, Stern, what's not to love about this game? You have the two oldest quarterbacks in the NFL.
Bruce Arians is the one thing not to love, but continue.
The two oldest quarterbacks in the NFL, but yet they're two of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. I mean, two of the GOATs, Tom Brady and Drew Brees, a combined age of 85. You got to love it. Tom Brady, 43, and then Drew Brees will be turning 42 on Friday. So he might be able to grant a birthday wish to get what would be his third win over the Bucs this season, because these two teams have played twice. They're in the same division. The first matchup in week 1, the Saints won at home 34-23. And then about midway through the season, the Saints steamrolled the Buccaneers 38-3 in Tampa. Just an absolute domination by New Orleans, especially on the defensive side of the ball, because as we know, Tampa Bay has a very strong offense with Brady and all of his weapons. So it's hard to beat a team 3 times, but it's especially hard to beat Tom Brady 3 times, especially when he has guys like Antonio Brown, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Gronk. You know that connection's dangerous in the playoffs. So Tom Brady and the Bucs have a lot going for them in this game, especially some momentum after beating Washington last week 31-23. And the Saints are coming off a big win over the Bears 21-9, which really was a blowout from the start. Jimmy Graham got that late one-handed touchdown as time expired. I think the Bucs are going to compete. I think it's going to be a very close game, but at the end of the day, the Saints are a better overall team looking at the offense and defense, and they've had a better season. I'm going to go Saints 35-31.
I think once you get slimed on Nickelodeon after a playoff win, I feel like that's going to be a curse. We've all seen the video of Sean Payton being true to his word, which I appreciate, getting slimed in the locker room after the Nickelodeon victory.
Not just slimed. He got slimed in his Jordan 11s. Like, those things are beyond coveted and expensive, and he did not take those off.
He's Sean Payton. He probably like overnighted some on Sunday night. He'll be fine. I think this has the potential to be a turning point for New Orleans, where we say, ever since Sean Payton got slimed, especially if Brees retires this offseason, the Saints are blank and blank. So like, will it be at week 13 next year? And it's like, since the slime game, Sean Payton and the Saints have gone 5-9 or something like that. That being said, I do think that Tampa Bay keeps this one close. As I said, I picked them to win the Super Bowl, so I am definitely handcuffed to picking them to win this week. I think this is a game that comes down to putting together drives in the fourth quarter, and as potent as the New Orleans offense is, if they have to score quickly, if they ever get in that situation, we're not really sure how they can do that. Michael Thomas, it was nice to see signs of life from him. A lot of fantasy owners saying, "Oh, thanks a lot for scoring a touchdown once the postseason starts," and you screwed all of us who drafted you in the first round. But Michael Thomas, I think, will be a bigger factor with each week that goes by in these playoffs. Though I think the Saints run ends this week. Brady looked good. I think he'll look good again. I think he really, really, I mean, as lighthearted as he's been with like the, posting the memes about this game being on the History Channel because they're both so old. I think that's all kind of a cover for the fact that Tom Brady's really amped up and wants to win this game. He's done it before, proving all doubters wrong. He's been told he's going to retire basically at the end of every season since he's been 37. And I think the last thing that Tom Brady wants to do is lose a third consecutive game to Drew Brees, the guy who he's going back and forth with for the all-time passing yards lead, and the guy who's going back and forth with the all-time touchdowns lead. Though I think Brady now has the advantage in that category. Obviously, postseason doesn't matter for those numbers, but Tom's not going to want to lose this one. I think this Bucs defense does what it can to contain Kamara as much as is humanly possible. And I think Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Gronk come up huge for the Bucs. I hope that Taft is right and that we do end up in the 30s. I think maybe we'll be a little lower than that just because the Saints can chew up so much clock with the little Alvin Kamara dink and dunks. I'm going to say Tampa wins this one 27-24 in what I think might be the game of the playoffs, or at least have the best storyline surrounding them.
I think that this is in the post Mitchell Trubisky winning the MVP award, the Saints will struggle. I mean, Trubisky makes a strong case for the best quarterback in the class after that. And I'm going to dedicate my prediction to a lifelong Saints fan and an avid listener of this podcast, Connery Schmidt. I know you're listening to this. Huge Saints fan, and I'm going to go with the Bucs, 31-30.
That's just a dagger to the chest.
That's cold.
It's cold. It's cold.
That's like colder than Corso has ever been. He's like, well, these guys are blah blah blah, but give me the elephant head or something. Oh my god.
It's cold.
Give me the pirate ship.
I'll figure out how to make it up to her later, but I hope you're listening. It's tough to beat a team 3 times in a season. You can't ignore that. And especially division rival. I think that the Bucs are going to come out pretty motivated. This is Tom in the playoffs. And I think that while Mike Evans isn't going to be in the equation because he's always blanketed by Marshawn Lattimore, you still have Godwin, who, oh my God, was dropping everything in sight last week. Very surprising. I think he had 4 or 5 drops.
It was the epitome of announcer's curse. They were talking about Chris Godwin.
I know.
Oh, the best hands on the team. And boom, right there, drop. 5 minutes later, drop.
Are Chris Godwin's hands better than Kawhi Leonard's, though? Which are talked about more? Chris Godwin's hands or Kawhi Leonard's?
Kawhi's.
Did you see Kawhi holding 2 water bottles the other day?
And that was worthy of going on ESPN.
Who has bigger hands, DeAndre Hopkins or Kawhi Leonard?
I don't know. I think there's definitely some scouts in the NBA. I think there's definitely some scouts in the NBA and NFL who are like, well, actually, if you look at it, even though Kawhi's hands are a little bigger, the diameter of Sammy Watkins' hands is a little bit more impressive, and his fingers are even longer. The fact that we actually use that as a metric for like it matters is kind of, I mean, if you have crazy small hands, yes. But if you just have average size hands and can catch a football, I don't really care how long everything is. It's fine. Relax.
Cole Beasley's hands cannot be that big, and he was second team All-Pro. He's like that. It does not matter.
Exactly. If we're in the interest of dedicating just like backhanded predictions to certain fans of certain teams, Hugh Monstead. I don't want to be. I do not want to be. I'll say this much. I do not want to be a couch within kicking distance of Hugh Monstead if he's in the playoffs again.
Get all the furniture. Get everything breakable out of the area. Oh my God!
It's time to monster proof everything.
Got to go. We love us some Hugh Monstead.
Before we go to facts or fake news, I would just like to talk about some of the best things I saw on Twitter about the Nickelodeon broadcast. For those of you who don't understand what we're talking about, the NFL decided that putting the Chicago Bears in a playoff game on Nickelodeon, in addition to the simulcast with Jim Nantz and Tony Romo on CBS, which most civilized humans were watching, I think the Nickelodeon thing was an effort to reach out to young children who don't understand football. It featured Noah Eagle, the son of Ian Eagle, and Nate Burleson of Good Morning Football, which was a big get for them. He did a really good job of explaining some things, but there were also some really awesome moments where they had to explain some of the ridiculous minutia of the NFL game, including they had a challenge flag in the first quarter, which was kind of interesting because they had to explain. I think Burleson said it was basically when you double dare the referees to make their call correctly. And of course, it was the play that Matt Nagy had to challenge when I can't remember if it was Allen Robinson or Javon Wims got like 4 feet in bounds and they called him out of bounds because there's that one call every quarter the refs have to miss. Also, great graphic. They showed the Chauncey Gardner-Johnson and Javon Wims fight as a dynamic duo. And then what was the other one they showed? Or no, it was
Well, that was the dynamic duo with Patrick and SpongeBob.
Yeah.
There was Alvin Kamara and Alvin Seville comparison of resumes.
Alvin Seville is actually a little better. I think that Alvin and the Chipmunks are a bit more impressive than 21 touchdowns or 6 in a game or anything like that. We all know if Alvin Seville had to suit up for an NFL game, if he had to take on the rest of the animated world, he would rush for at least 7 touchdowns, mostly because Sean Payton would give him the ball and not Taysom Hill with a chance to break the record. The only thing we didn't get to see, and this was kind of unfortunate because it's every Bears national game, is they didn't show that like the Bears picked Mitch Trubisky ahead of Deshaun Watson. We didn't get to see like child version with like the big googly eyes or slime of like Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes. I was kind of disappointed that they didn't talk about how it's like, so basically the Bears tried to be nice and they picked the really unathletic, uncoordinated kid at recess when there were two all-stars waiting for the pickup game. They saw him and they're like, actually, we're going to give up a lot of our other players and trade picks up. But instead of taking the 2 guys who are who look like they're really good and raw athletes and can develop into nice quarterbacks, we're going to take this kid because he's really sweet and we like him and think he can do something better. Nickelodeon did not have to explain that.
We did get I forget who dropped it, the major F-bomb right on Nickelodeon.
Oh, no, it was
Cordero.
Cordero Patterson. Yeah. I think there was a penalty or something. And he goes, beep. Yeah.
Absolutely just uncensored right on Nickelodeon.
My favorite play, and I didn't see this one on Twitter. So we all know the crazy trick play where they lined up in Wildcat. Mitch caught it through, and I'll give him credit for this. It was a beautiful deep ball. Defender, I don't know who the defender was for New Orleans, draped all over Wims' back, but it was one of those where it's like, he's going to catch the touchdown, so it's not worth throwing the flag. Right through Javon Wims' hands, drops it for what would have been, other than the Graham touchdown, the only touchdown of like not garbage time for the Chicago Bears. And I can't remember what her last name was. It was Gabriella something on the broadcast. She was the one who said, "Hey!" every time someone got slimed after a touchdown. That was her hard-hitting analysis. But she goes, "Oh, so close," when Javon Wims dropped it wide open in the end zone.
Oh my God.
But yeah, just a great broadcast on Nickelodeon. It was pretty cool. If I were a child, it was a pretty good explanation of football. But for the rest of us, the dynamic duos comparison between CJ Gardner-Johnson, and Javon Wims was undeniable. Moving on to the important stuff, like facts or fake news. Facts or fake news number 1. Not sure if you saw the news yesterday. I know you all did. This was actually what spurred this podcast to be recorded on a Tuesday, not a Wednesday. So the Eagles decided to fire Doug Pederson. Apparently their plan was, according to sources, I mean Liam Desmond, he told me he read that the Eagles' plan for hiring a new coach was that they were going to ask Doug Pederson to present basically a strategic plan to them. And if they liked it, they would keep him. And if they didn't like it, they would fire him, because that's really smart when you're already a week behind in the coaching search cycle. Anyway, Doug Pederson, the first and only coach in franchise history to win a Super Bowl, and it was just 3 seasons ago, gets canned by the Philadelphia Eagles. That was the right decision. Facts or fake news?
It's fake news. The Eagles' problem is Carson Wentz and his A, lack of just straight ability, and B, his enormous contract. The problem, when you've only won 1 Super Bowl in your franchise's history, and the Eagles have been around a long time, okay? They are not the Jaguars or the Panthers or the Texans or somebody who's been joined in the last 30 years. The Eagles have been around decades. They have 1 Super Bowl, and even having players like Donovan McNabb and Randall Cunningham and other greats like that, they haven't won a Super Bowl. And they get it with Nick Foles. They literally have a Nick Foles, Doug Pederson statue outside of Lincoln Financial Field that was put up in the last 3 years. They quite literally have a statue of the Philly special conversation on the sideline outside the stadium. And so now, less than 3 years later, like 35 months-ish, later, he's gone. And why is that? Well, a fractured relationship with a quarterback who can we name a team he'd start on when everybody's healthy? Would Carson Wentz start on the team? As much as you crap on Tua Stone, he would not start in Miami. Let's set that out there.
The Washington football team.
Would he actually start over Alex Smith? No.
Oh, this year?
Yes,
no.
yes.
Maybe
He'd start over Trubisky.
Oh,
in
yeah,
Chicago.
that's fair.
No, he would not. No.
Yeah, he would. I think he would.
Well, I mean, it depends.
It'd be a competition, but
if Matt Nagy's still around, Matt Nagy would still have that like odd. I really want to make this work with Mitch because I'm just going to go down with the ship here and probably try to force it.
He'd start over C.J. Beathard / Nick Mullins when Jimmy Garoppolo eventually gets.
If everybody's like the start of next year, is he going to be a starting quarterback somewhere when everybody's healthy? No.
Yes.
No.
Okay, we're getting sidetracked. Anyway,
the Jags are going to get Trevor Lawrence. He's not going to start anywhere next year. He's not, like, you watch the games, he's not better than Jalen Hurts. That team, Doug Pederson was not the Eagles' problem because without Carson Wentz, they won a Super Bowl. Like they did not have him, and they won a Super Bowl. And they are just sticking to Carson Wentz because of his massive contract, and that's just a mistake that's going to haunt them for the next 5 to 10 years because they're not going to have the coach that got him Super Bowl, and they're going to be wasting money on a quarterback who's probably like not going to be playing over Jalen Hurts.
So we're saying fake news that it was the right decision.
Fake news. And they want to bring in Lincoln Riley now.
Oh yeah, because to
be the quarterback whisperer for Jalen.
Well, I hear there's a great quarterback whisperer on the market. Not sure if you've heard of him. He worked with Peyton Manning in Denver, and his name is Adam Gase. Yeah, I understand. I understand in his 5th season as a head coach, he went 2-14. I really get that, but he's a quarterback whisperer. He was the QB coach for a guy who was already more developed and more qualified to be a quarterback coach, and he was also playing the position. I'm going to say fake news here, just because of the timing. I think if they had done this 2 weeks ago, right after the Nate Sudfeld thing, you're justified. Because watching your coach basically go out and throw in the towel on national television in the last regular season game of the year is humiliating. It's embarrassing for your franchise. But I'm not going to go full Dan Orlovsky and note zap anyone here. What I will say, though, is that doing this 2 weeks later is just painfully NFC East. This is something an NFC East team would definitely do, where you decide you're basically going to make your existing head coach audition to keep his job, which is kind of whack, I would say. And now they're 2 weeks behind. They're not going to they're basically Jim Tomsula is probably the only guy left who would want this job right now with as much of a dumpster fire as it is.
Go get Steve Mariucci off the NFL Network or something like that.
I mean, if they're going to hire someone out of the booth, maybe it's time that we get Booger McFarland his first head coaching gig.
Oh, God,
but I don't understand the timing of this at all. I think the Nate Sudfeld thing would have been caused 2 weeks ago, but now you're so far behind, you're not going to get who you want. Everyone, it's January 12th. Everyone who hasn't already hired their coach is thinking about next season, and all of the guys who haven't yet signed are probably more interested in basically all of the other jobs still available, except the Detroit Lions. That's kind of a handcuff, but I'm going to say fake news here. Timing makes no sense. And then the guy won you a suit. You can't fire a guy who had a statue of him put up in the last 5 years. That should be a rule. Or maybe you shouldn't put up statues of one play call in a Super Bowl, literally a week after it happens. But
well, if a guy like that is going to leave, you should he should resign on his own. You should be we're encouraging you to resign because you're going to get cut at the end of your contract.
Yeah, that's not to say Doug Pederson did a nice job handling this season. It was just basically it went off the rails as soon as he benched Wentz for Hurts and couldn't figure out how to maintain that relationship. So definitely not a great coach, but don't like this at all. Facts or fake news number 2. I'm excited to tee off on this one. The Dolphins should trade Tua Tagovailoa and multiple draft picks for the Houston Texans' Deshaun Watson.
Stone, let me knock this out first, and I'll let you just go on your soliloquy. This is facts. They should easily bring in Deshaun Watson because Tua, he's not going to be Deshaun Watson. And
wait, so let me get this straight. We're gonna text back and forth all week about whether or not Tua's the guy, and you're gonna defend Tua, and now you're gonna just bail on him for Deshaun Watson?
I mean, being the guy and being the league leader in passing yards without a clear number 1 receiver are two totally different things.
All right, I'm gonna see if I can hit.
Go ahead, Stone. This is all you. This is facts, but go ahead. This is all.
William, you chime in, give your take, and then I'm gonna go on my little.
I'll chime in. Okay, I'm gonna go fake news. They're gonna have to give up some serious draft capital, and I think that once again, use this draft, give Tua some weapons. I think you have a pick where you can get a pretty solid receiver. It's probably not going to be Devontae Smith or Jamar Chase, but it's going to be someone who's, I don't think the Dolphins fans.
I think William is assuming the Dolphins aren't going to waste the 3rd overall pick on a wide receiver because that's like the equivalent of
that's
just
crazy.
draft malpractice.
Amari Cooper went 4th and turned out. Like, what's the problem with taking? If you need a receiver and you
this class is deep enough. You can take Rashad Bateman. You can take a flyer on Rondale Moore.
No. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Okay,
now all the other guys are fine. Don't do that.
No.
Rashad Bateman. I don't know. Maybe you wait and get De'Ami Brown. Yeah, see, Jay likes
a movement Jay can get behind.
I can get behind that movement. Okay, De'Ami Brown is a freak, but go ahead.
Yes, exactly. So you build around Tua. You let your rookie quarterback develop. You maybe change your offense. I think Chan Gailey retired. Did he not?
He's gone. It's kind of like a forced fire. You guys ever seen?
Yeah.
You know how in the movie Draft Day, Kevin Costner like kind of forced his dad to resign. Great film, by the way. Actually,
Weaver Senior. Yeah.
I heard on a podcast, Coach. He just called him Coach Weaver because didn't want to make it clear as his father. Brief side note: I heard that. I heard on the Bill Simmons podcast that the Browns playoff win was the franchise's best moment since I want all my picks back, and I want David beep Putney because I feel
Putney.
like say it with me, you pancake eating bleep. But yeah, continue.
When
Chan, no matter what.
When Chan Gailey resigned, I heard the excitement all the way from Juno Beach, Florida, in Luke Stone's house, all the way up here in North Carolina. Like the only thing that could possibly top that level of excitement right now is if Dan Mullen takes Todd Grantham to the New York Jets. That's the only thing that can make. I mean, just look at him right now. That's the only thing that can make Luke Stone that exciting. Like it was astounding the amount of happiness Luke Stone had when Gailey resigned.
If I were an NFL GM, the turnover on my coaching staff it'd be like a season. It'd just be crazy. Anyway, William.
I mean, like I was saying, come on, Chan Gailey's gone. Tua was working in a conservative offense. Give him someone who can actually create separation instead of Devontae Parker and Preston Williams, who just literally run straight and try to catch a 50-50 ball. And I think that Tua's going to develop. It just depends on who the new OC is. Obviously, you're going to want someone who I think I would want someone who can run like a wide open, high octane offense. I don't think you abandon the Tua experiment, but obviously I'm going to, let's hear from the Dolphins fan himself.
Well, I would say if we want an offensive coordinator, there are 2 names in my mind. One would be, again, not sure if you heard of this guy, quarterback guru. His name is Adam Gase. And then if not him, maybe you get noted offensive analyst Butch Jones. Just kidding. Both those guys would be terrible hires. Just like I don't even care. Grab the quarterback coach from like. Can you think Jamie Chadwell would consider leaving Coastal to become the Dolphins offensive coordinator? I'd like that. I know nothing about the offense they run other than that they're good. Anyway, if you asked me this question at like 4:40 on January 3rd or whatever day the Dolphins played the Bills, I would have told you the Dolphins should flip Tua for a 5th round pick because that's all he would have been worth. I was a bit hurt. It was a raw emotional experience. Watching my team get 30 piece by its biggest rival and get swept for a 2nd consecutive year.
I was with you. I'm surprised you wouldn't have said just like cut him straight up, just not even try and trade him.
Yeah, I almost put my hand through the dashboard and listening to the radio call in the 2nd quarter. I've cooled my jets a little bit on the Tua as a bust movement. I've decided to give him a little more time. But that being said, the Miami Dolphins have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity here to get a quarterback who wants a trade. Oh, and by the way, he's also 25 years old. He's 3 years older than Tua. You basically get to skip through all of the ugly part. So coming in as an NFL quarterback, the cycle is typically if you're a top 5 guy, your first year is pretty good, a lot of promise, but then like there are some growing pains as you try to develop yourself as a franchise quarterback. I would say, though, that this never happens. When was the last time an NFL quarterback, I guess Carson Wentz is doing it now, but a guy who's actually worth something, a guy who's like a 90 overall in Madden, a guy who led the league in passing yards. When's the last time a guy like that said that he wanted to get a trade and was willing to waive his no trade clause to go to the right situation? That doesn't happen often. Deshaun Watson is 25 years old and led the league in passing yards and one of the 10 maybe 5 or 6 on a good week best quarterbacks in the league. Tua has the potential to be all that. But the problem is the Dolphins' window is, I think, shorter than a lot of people think. Because they have so much draft capital and there are so many guys they've hit on, they're going to have to pay them at some point. And it's going to be hard for them to keep this defense as good as it is and pay Tua and pay all these young guys. Watson's contract is big, but it's already locked up, which is huge because it means you don't have to sign yourself to some 7-8 year mega deal that you're probably, if you're the team, getting a little bit of the short end of the stick on. The Dolphins don't really need the draft capital that badly. They've got a lot of promising young guys in their program right now, and the cap space where in free agency they can go sign wide receivers who are the equivalent of the guys they'd be drafting in the first round. Not to mention, they're only going to have to give up first rounders for Watson. The thing I've heard bandied around is Dolphins give up both their first rounders this year and Tua, or Tua, one of their first rounders this year and a first rounder next year. But they still got two early second round picks, which could be good for, a legitimate running back, as much as I love Myles Gaskin, like a Najee Harris type. And then in the second round, who knows what wide receiver you get? I mean, you can get a guy, like you said, Rashad Bateman would be someone who could fall that far. Maybe if Chris Olave is a really good combine, it's someone you decide to draft in the second or third round. There are a lot of guys who are available. And then not to mention guys like D.D. Westbrook, is going to be a free agent this offseason if he doesn't re-sign with Jacksonville. I assume Jacksonville will want him back.
Wait a minute. Hold on. You would get excited about having D.D. Westbrook at receiver?
Where did that name come from?
It's better than having like Isaiah Ford. It came from he's in a contract year. Wait, did you just say do you think it's not better than Isaiah Ford?
I'm saying it's basically, what has D.D. Westbrook done?
He's been injured.
Okay.
He won a Biletnikoff. That's what he did. Isaiah Ford didn't do that.
This is true. But there are plenty of guys who are wide receivers who are always just kind of like perpetual free agents moving around on one-year contracts. And Deshaun Watson is a game-changing quarterback. I mean, he is a game-changing quarterback that turns this team into an instant contender next year. Not necessarily for the Super Bowl, but I mean, your floor with Deshaun Watson in this coaching staff that actually knows what it's doing, unlike the Houston Texans in this front office, is probably 8 or 9 wins. Your ceiling is probably 11 or 12. Now with Tua, you can definitely have maybe 11 or 12 if this defense plays out of its mind again, which is, not something that is a given. But I mean, as much as I love Tua and I want him to be successful, I think if you have this opportunity to basically give up the picks the Texans already gave you, which you already turned into 2 promising young offensive linemen, plus other young players that you've drafted well, you can find the receivers you need in the second or third round and develop them and have a bona fide star at quarterback who was a Pro Bowler this year, right? Was Watson a Pro Bowler despite being on a 4-12 roster? And he wants out. I mean, Deshaun, whenever players force trades like this, especially someone of Deshaun Watson's caliber, I mean, I don't want to, and maybe the Jimmy Butler thing is I'm overselling just because they're both guys who chose to go to Miami and forcing a trade, but Deshaun Watson's not happy. Jimmy Butler wasn't happy. He came to Miami, found a really good quality organization with great coaching and had the best postseason of his career. Deshaun Watson, similarly, I think teaming up with Brian Flores in an organization that is really, really committed to player development and really committed to doing things the right way, I think he'd be really successful. And not to mention, he'd be a lot happier because a lot of Watson's concerns were the fact that he didn't really think the organization was that interested in the whole social justice stuff. And that's something really important to Deshaun Watson. And there are plenty of guys on this Miami Dolphins roster like Byron Jones and others who are super interested in that. And the team is really supportive of them there in a way the Texans weren't really. So I think that him in Miami makes perfect sense. I love Tua. I wish him all the best. But if given the option to give up 2 first-round picks and the promising young quarterback for a guy who's only 3 years older and has 10 years of mileage left and can scramble better and has a better arm and all of those things, I am doing that 7 days a week easily. End of rant. Facts or fake news number 3, this Alabama team was the best Bama team ever. I'll start this off easily. Facts, yes. Next question. So I'm guessing that the silence means we're going to get some resistance here.
It's not as clear cut, I think.
Don Baker, the Woodbury's running back, William, if you've never heard of him. He sent me, and I guess Taft, a text last night. He's like, is this the best Bama team ever? He's like genuinely curious. And I said, I am going to have to think about this. I think it's the most dominant team, yes. But there's just like, if you were to play last year's Bama team against this year's Bama team, last year's Bama team would run roughshod over this team. And that's nothing against this year's team. The grand landscape of college football this year, just the teams weren't as good. Like think about junior year basketball. Zion Williamson at Duke, like Carolina was a 1 seed, UVA was a 1 seed. It was like heavyweight prime college basketball period. A lot of teams were good, and then the next year everything just fell off. I'm sorry, UVA won a national championship. They wouldn't have stood a chance against UVA year before, Duke or Carolina or who won that year? Junior year. That was that was UVA.
That was UVA. The year before was Villanova. The year before was Carolina.
Yeah. So I think it was the most dominant just because they were just so much better than the rest of the teams in the country. But last year's Bama team, like, it's essentially, there's a reason we had doubt with Mac Jones coming into the season is because Tua was so good in college. And he had injury issues, yes, but when he was fully healthy and had his dudes, he was beyond damn good. He had Devontae Smith, who he didn't win a Heisman, but pretty damn good if you ask me. Go watch him play Derek Stingley in Tuscaloosa 2 years ago. He had Judy, he had Ruggs, he had Waddle, he had all these dudes. He had the same offensive line, plus Jedrick Wills, who was a top 10 pick. Plus the defense had Xavier McKinney and the same dudes. So I don't think it's better than 2012. That team
And
was
Raekwon Davis, right?
Yes, they had Anthony Jennings was that was earlier.
Yeah,
he wasn't there last year, but
okay, I retract. Fake news.
They're the most dominant.
And Trayvon Diggs.
They're the most dominant, but they're not the best ever, and that's only because that's like nothing against them. We just never saw them play. We never saw them play Clemson, who I still think is the second best team in the country, and there's just something to be said, like the all SEC schedule nonsense that I'm hearing. Like how many A&M was the fifth best team in the country still, and you and I saw them in person, fully healthy with no opt-outs. They did not look good at all. Like I'm sorry, the SEC looked mediocre this year, and just carrying it's the SEC football. No, that's ridiculous. No, so they're the most dominant, but they're not the best, and there's a difference.
I'm gonna do fake news also, and I've been looking at it, and we were talking about this earlier, and I think the 2011 team, 2011, 2012. May I remind you that the national championship game against LSU was 21-0 in favor of the Crimson Tide, thanks to their defense.
Oh yeah, Stone. Let me get into that after we finish it. We skipped over the throwback thing of the week.
Well, let me just throw out some of the names. We got Courtney Upshaw, Dante Hightower, Dre Kirkpatrick. On the offensive side, you have, I think A.J. McCarron was there, and Trent Richardson, who won a Heisman. So I'm not sure if receiver-wise it might have been a little thin. I think this was pre-Amari Cooper.
They had Marquise Mays and Kevin Norwood at receiver.
Yeah.
Marquise Mays. That's a throwback. That's a throwback and a half.
Dang, we should have used that.
Entirely defense. They like the
if
numbers.
I put this team up, I don't know. If you put that team up against the Alabama team this year, I mean, what's going to give? I don't know. I think that this team was they did have a loss, which is hard to overlook considering this 2020 team was undefeated. But I think that in terms of talent going to the NFL draft too, and having such a dominant defense compared to Bama this year, having one of their worst defenses in years, I'm going to go the 2011-2012 team, but certainly an undefeated national championship winning team this year makes a good case. It's just like you were saying, the competition was not there in the SEC.
Mac Jones and A.J. McCarron, by the way, are actually the same person. They just genetically modified A.J. McCarron to make him a little little fatter.
Yeah, I want to see a number of this. How many throws of Mac Jones's actually went beyond 10 yards? Because everywhere we looked, we saw him throwing a little dink and dunk pass to Devontae Smith after a phenomenally drawn
Probably
up
more than
screen
Tua's.
play. We saw a Najee Harris flare route. Okay, like what is it? And I don't know.
The Dolphins
out Mac Jones.
To go back a little bit, if the Dolphins keep Tua, I would say the way to handle it is literally just draft the entire University of Alabama offense. Like try to overdraft Devontae Smith, get Jalen Waddle, grab Najee Harris, grab Deontay Brown in the second round, and literally just have like 5 Bama starters on the offense because apparently that's the only system in which Tua can succeed or something. Oh, and then also you got to give Steve Sarkisian $25 million to become your offensive coordinator. And then maybe we'll have a shot to make the playoffs next year. Facts or fake news number 4. Bradley Beal is the most underrated player in the NBA. Underrated or underappreciated?
I think that's facts. Whenever you like lead with this X is the most underrated player, you'd be like, oh, yeah, that guy's pretty. I mean, I think that a couple names that come to mind are Domantas Sabonis, no bias here, Malcolm Brogdon, but I think Bradley Beal is probably at the top of that list, considering he's averaging 34.9 points this season.
I think he's the
most pure scorer.
He's the most underappreciated, but I just think Devin Booker just does not put him on a playoff team and see what he can do in the playoffs. I just think Devin Booker, it's close. They're both phenomenal scoring, shooting 2 guards, but I don't know. I mean, Bradley Beal is the NBA's Deshaun Watson. Basically, can we agree on that?
Yeah,
he's never been to the playoffs, has he?
It's like carrying.
I think he might have made it as like a 7 once or twice. I don't know if he was playing because he had some injury issues.
Yeah.
Earlier on when they still had John Wall. I think that this question is one that hinges on is he the best underrated player? Because if you're talking about the difference between perceived value and actual value, there probably are some other guys who might not be as big of names. But for big names, yes. The other name I'd throw out though, I think Booker. Yeah, you're right. Is probably very underrated. And I'm tempted, and I'll say fake news on this, but just because I feel like as much hype as we give a lot of these young guys, I still think it's possible that we're underrating Luka Doncic in what he does for the Dallas Mavericks.
The preseason MVP candidate. What do you mean we're underrating him?
I think that even though he was I'm saying I think that he's probably the 3rd most valuable player in the league right now at the age of 25. And I think that he's kind of in the LeBron searches for title number 5 era, as much coverage as he gets. I think Luka Doncic is just on a totally different level. Or no. Wait, never mind. Not Doncic. Doncic is underrated. I think the most underrated player in the NBA is Nikola Jokic though. I think he's a little
underrated.
Yeah, I think he is. I mean, he's literally a center with better passing vision than 80% of the point guards in the league. I mean, he's just an unbelievable distributor. So I'm going to back off of Doncic here, but I will say Nikola Jokic is the most underrated player in the NBA, just because I think they talk about his versatility and whatnot, but he's just on a different level. Also, he's had playoff success, which Bradley Beal has not, and I still don't think gets the respect he deserves. All right. Facts or fake news number 5. An AFC team will beat the Kansas City Chiefs this postseason.
Facts.
Where are we on this? We're on facts?
We're facts. I think we're all pretty firm believers in the Bills. Or if there's anyone out there, I don't think any of us took the Browns, so
no.
Pretty much the Bills / Ravens train.
I'm not going to jinx myself.
That means the Browns are going to win this week.
Huh?
We all pick the Browns. It means the Browns are going to win this week. We all pick one team, the other team wins. We all sweep one way, it goes the other way.
Oh, true.
That's how it all works.
Did we really? Did we seriously just put Baker Mayfield 1 game closer to a Super Bowl? If I had known that, I would have picked Cleveland by 30.
Somebody needs to sacrifice themselves and just put them at. Just pick the Browns.
I'm cooling it a little bit on Buffalo. I'm actually going to say, I'll say fake news here. I think it's a toss-up between Buffalo, KC. And even though there aren't fans, I think we're kind of underrating the Chiefs' home field advantage, how impossible it is to cover Travis Kelce in a game that will hopefully occur between Buffalo and Kansas City. I think as good as the Bills offense is, and as much as Josh Allen is playing better than Mahomes is right now, and obviously if Mahomes comes out and throws for 420 yards or something like that, or 430, we'll figure out that maybe Mahomes is better than Josh Allen again. But I think the Chiefs just have more weapons. I don't think they're going to lose. And there's a very real possibility that Baltimore upsets Kansas City. And I think if Baltimore, Kansas City play again, it'll be not necessarily a repeat of the Monday Night Football game, but I think Kansas City's a 7 or 8 point favorite at open in that game at home. So I will say fake news, an AFC team is not going to beat the Chiefs. They can lose to the Packers or the Bucks, picking the Bucks maybe in the Super Bowl, but Kansas City, I think, still rock solid. That is all for episode 32 of Stone Cold Sports Talk. Thank you for tuning in. We'll be back next week, Tuesday or Wednesday, previewing Conference Championship Week. Can't believe it's already almost here. Good episode today, boys, and we will see you all next weekend.